I barely remember much of my time spent in kindergarten, but certain traumatic experiences could make any memory vivid for the rest of your days. Author Andrew from the No Sleep subreddit shares a childhood experience he cannot forget. One of my kindergarten friends never came back from the woods. So, in kindergarten, I had 3 best friends. There was Jessie, Miranda, and then there was Jocelyn. Jocelyn was different than the rest of us. When she got angry, she had to be taken out of the classroom and brought to a special room just for kids like her. This really confused me at the time, because I was only 5 or 6 and I didn't know anything but terrible reasoning. My terrible reasoning came into play when all of the group were hanging out at my house in my backyard. See, my yard had a wooden fence, but behind that wooden fence was a wide, vast forest with this huge river system and a few large drops. I loved going back there on the rare occasions I didn't wuss out. This happened to be one of those rare occasions. We all snuck out of the fence and crawled on our knees into the forest. We could see green and brown and sunny blues. It was amazing. So we continued on, spotting a few animals and such. And then we encountered a drop. Jessie and Miranda were both excited, looking down the big drop and questioning what was down there. I determined the only way to know was to go down there. After 10 minutes and little hands grabbing rocks and climbing down unsteadily, we made it. The area we were in was abnormal. There weren't a lot of trees or rocks anymore, just dirt and grass and empty logs. Jocelyn started acting weird when we got to the middle of the new area. She was twitchy, like she was when she needed her special pills or her sleeping syrup stuff. I asked her if she was okay, and she just nodded. After walking for forever, at least to little kids, we saw something even weirder than anything we had seen. A deer carcass was strung up by the neck, and it was clearly not fresh by the flies buzzing around its empty eye sockets and the chunk of flesh taken from the side of it. Jocelyn didn't like this. She was shaky, really shaky, and her eyes were wide. She looked like she was gonna scream. So I patted her back, and I told her it was fine. It was gone now and couldn't hurt us. But she got shakier. She was whispering about how it wasn't that thing that was gonna hurt us, that something had to have done that to the deer. But she was saying it in simpler, little kid words. We walked on. Miranda found mushrooms, and Jessie ate a ladybug and some moss because he was hungry. Regular kindergartner stuff. But Jocelyn was getting worse the closer we got to wherever we were heading. She was practically unable to move from all her shaking, but I chose to ignore it and walked on. The last weird thing we saw that day before returning was a single hand nailed to a tree. Of course, we were terrified of it, being 5 and 6-year-olds. We ran far away, climbed up, went home, and we were all aware, even Jocelyn, that we had to forget this happened. However, the next week at around 11 p.m., something outside woke me up. I peered out of my window and saw a small, childlike figure crouching and waddling into the woods, leaving the gate wide open. I didn't understand the importance of this, so I fell back to sleep. The next day, Jocelyn wasn't at school. She wasn't there the day after either, or the next week, or the next. And eventually, the teacher called the class to the front and told us that Jocelyn had gone missing, and if anyone at all had seen her in the last 3 weeks, to say so immediately where and when. But nobody answered, not even me, who technically had seen her the night she'd gone missing, but didn't even know. Over the course of 5 months, police went searching far and wide for Jocelyn, but they never found her, until they questioned me of anywhere she could have been. I told them we had gone into the woods and found a drop once. This got them into the woods with me fast. We found our drop, but they left me at home while they went down. And when they came back, they didn't tell me why they were so quiet. I never really knew what happened to her until recently. I had been reading through old newspaper articles and ended up finding a 3-page story on the investigation behind Jocelyn Harps and what had happened. Reading through it was the worst part. No, scratch that. Looking at the images was the worst. It described how I helped them discover her body. It was strung up by her neck. She had all her appendages removed, and her eyes had been gouged out. Like the deer, she had a chunk, a large fat chunk, carved out of her side. The next newspaper had an article about the body of a man found in an old rotting wood shack near the area they found the body of Jocelyn. The man's mouth and teeth were stained red, crimson, but that fluid clearly wasn't his, because he had perished of natural causes, and nothing could have led to him vomiting blood or something. So they sent samples to the lab. The tests concluded the blood belonged to the now deceased Jocelyn Harps. They found her eyes and appendages nailed to trees surrounding the shack, each covered with plastic wrap, as if someone had done an attempt at preserving them. So we know Jocelyn Harps never came out of the woods. At least, that's all we know.